Oh,
Nice.
all right. Since the recording has started, we'll kick this off. Thank you, all of you, for joining us for the New York State Association of Conservation Commissions 50th New York State Conference on the Environment. We're being joined for our youth panel, our first of two youth panels. We have another one today at 4:00 p.m. By One World in Westchester Green County, USA, which is a coalition of young students doing amazing work, trailblazing what youth equity and what young people can do in our systems of higher education to address our climate-related issues. So with that being said, I'll give the floor to Mr. Joe Carvin, also Lindsay, to be able to introduce their wonderful esteemed panelists of young climate champions. So Joe, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Paul, and thanks very much, everybody, for being here today. Hopefully, this will be the last time you hear from me today, and we're going to hear from our student panelists. My name is Joe Carvin. I'm the founder of One World, and very, very pleased to be here today, and our young ladies will tell our story. I'll turn it over to Lindsay, and then let our young ladies talk.
So welcome to everybody who is here. I'm not going to say much as well because our WGC USA are so esteemed. As you'll see, you will meet Isabella, Sophia, and Riddha, who are going to tell you about the high schools and colleges that they attend, and then we'll give you a brief presentation.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Isabella, and I'm a junior at Edgemont Junior High School in Scarsdale.
Hi, I'm Sophia Alexandrou. I am a senior at White Plains High School.
Hi, I'm Riddha Iyengar. I recently graduated from Scarsdale High School, and I'm going to Smith College, freshman in the fall.
So, Bella, would you share our presentation now, please? Yep, thank you.
So with that, I'm going to share the presentation. So, yeah.
All right, so we are Westchester Green County, USA. We are a youth organization all across Westchester, youth-led. One World, which is our parent organization, has been working with the UNFCCC to help bring their climate neutral program to schools all across Westchester. The UNFCCC is a program within the UN that organized the COE processes that led to the Paris Agreement. The Climate Neutral Now program initiative has stemmed from those conferences. Go on, next slide. So working with One World, Worcester became the first district in the US to become climate neutral. So working with the UNFCCC following this success, One World partnered with Westchester County in an effort to bring this success to schools, to every school in Westchester. So as we said, we are the executive committee of Westchester Green County, USA, as we introduced ourselves before. So Westchester County Executive George Latimer, Chief Sustainability Officer Peter McCart, and Climate Project Coordinator Marty Rogowski decided that the best way to meet this ambitious goal was to find ways to involve Westchester youth. So Westchester Green County, USA was created in attempt to reach out to young action-oriented students from across Westchester in order to make this meaningful change within their schools across Westchester, and hopefully be able to reach a wider range of schools across the country and across the world.
So we've been basing our climate action plan based on the K-12 climate action plan. And the goal of that is really to just unlock the power of the education sector to be a force of climate change. And I feel like in the fight for climate change, we don't really think of schools as a possible way to really combat climate change. And there's there's four main parts of this climate action plan, which we will detail in a little bit. But just for a little bit background on why schools are more important than you may think. So 100,000 public schools K to 12 schools are on 2 million acres of land. So that's a lot of land being used. 480,000 school buses are in use. There's 7 billion meals served, which produces about 530,000 tons of food waste. So the impact is pretty significant. And now with the CACs, we're being joined by all of you, and we really think that your model is really terrific for our own organization. And just as there's like a CAC in every town in New York State, we want to have like a climate action plan implemented in every school in Westchester County and possibly through New York State eventually. So back to the K-12 climate action plan, the 4 goals of that is to first mitigate, then educate. The third step is to adapt, and then finally to advance equity. And I'll turn it over to Sophia to talk about our first step, which is to mitigate.
So to mitigate, this is also known as the Westchester Dual Pledge. This is a main thing that we're working with the UNFCCC. This is what is going to get schools to that climate neutral status. There are 3 steps. So the first step is to measure your average annual greenhouse gas emissions using a calculator created by the UNFCCC. This can be done through your building operations manager inputting the information into the calculator themselves. For underfunded schools, there is also a benchmarking program by NYSERDA. The next step is to reduce. So this can be through short-term reduction plans like food waste projects, LED light bulb installation, or long-term reduction plans like solar panel installation. And the last step is to offset your carbon footprint. So this can be done through investment in green projects overseas, facilitated by the UNFCCC, that will allow developing countries to economically develop without forcing them to further contribute to global emissions. And yeah, we have 3 goals for this entire process. So climate neutral we want every school in Westchester to become climate neutral by 2025. This is what that previous mitigation step will achieve. By 2030, we want every school to become 50% net zero and 100% net zero by 2045. This is done through the reduction step in the mitigation process of the climate action plan.
So the second step is to educate. So at Westchester Green County, USA, we really want to find ways to connect the different Westchester environmental clubs that are in each high school to really share activities, ideas, and overall just best practices. Climate change is also being taught in schools through environmental classes. So there are environmental educators whose efforts we want to kind of bring together throughout Westchester at not only the high school level, but at the elementary and middle school levels as well, and possibly even looking at climate change curriculum. We've had some virtual conferences thus far. We've had 3, one in October, one in April, and one recently in June. And those have really been to kind of share those best practices and connect the Westchester youth to build this idea of global competence and becoming eco-literate, eco-collaborative, and eco-engaged. And in addition to that, we've kind of heard from students who have served on their CACs and shared their experience being on that, just to encourage more students to get involved with that as well. And eventually we want to create like this database that includes every environmental club in Westchester County and as well as every environmental educator.
All right, so the next step is adapt. And in adapt, our motto is think global, act local. So this is where we bring students and sustainability communities together, specifically the CACs. And so one of the strategic goals of our 4-part K-12 climate action plan is to find ways to closely work with you all, the CACs in Westchester and New York State. So the Westchester County government and Sustainable Westchester have been very successful in encouraging each municipality to establish a sustainability committee. WGC USA is encouraging its students leaders to coordinate their sustainability efforts with the local sustainability committees and we are again following your guys's plan, and we are encouraging 2 to 3 students to participate on the sustainability committees. And WGC USA would also like to encourage schools and sustainability committees to hold annual conferences to share best practices, and ideally one day after the other. And yeah, that's all about that.
So the last step is to advance equity. So in terms of advancing equity locally, New York State has targeted $59 million for the support of underserved communities in New York State. And we're really committed to help getting schools that qualify for those funding in Westchester County a fair share of that funding that they deserve. Since we understand that some schools just simply can't afford to implement Westchester Union County USA and get that climate change infrastructure implemented into their schools without that funding. So that's a big part of what we're trying to do in our climate change strategy. And we're also trying to help underserved municipalities secure funding as well. Now, in terms of globally, there's no doubt that climate change impacts poorer communities more than, richer Westchester. So whether that be in within the United States or in countries that are developing like India, we're really committed to helping advancing equity in those countries. And so as Sophia had mentioned before, the third step of mitigation is to offset, and you can do that through these UNFCCC programs. So we're going to channel investment from Research Wish Westchester to other nations by investing in projects. And at the same time, schools will be able to reach that climate neutral status by investing in such overseas programs. And this is important because the recent COP26 meeting in Glasgow reached 2 conclusions. The first being that there needs to be double the funding amount allotted to these emerging countries. And we need to target 50% net zero by 2030, which is exactly what Westchester Green County USA is trying to do.
So next is WGC USA's achievements. So we have, like mentioned before, organized several successful educational conferences, the June 5th, the October one, and the April conference as well. We put in place student-led structure to engage schools in the fight of a lifetime climate change. So us, as well as other subcategories under the executive committee for students to have better student engagement, put in place a comprehensive action focused strategy that is supported by the county, Albany Reps, the UN, Let's Go Zero, K-12, FCWC, Social Relief, and One World. We have introduced the UNFCCC in 4 school districts and are hoping to introduce it into more school districts, and receive the support of the county executive, George Latimer, State Senator Shelley Mayer, and Congressman Bellamy. So these are some of our achievements. And then in terms of our goals for here on, the first one is to expand our student-led conversation, enroll CACs and educators, so all of you guys, execute the K-12 plan, mitigate, so enroll 20 schools in the UNFCCC program, organize 1 to 2 educational conferences throughout the year for students to learn more and hopefully discuss about ways to better their systems in their schools regarding the climate change, like WGC in their schools, and advance equity. Adapt, establish relationships with 20 CACs, advance equity, channel 25,000 offsets, and help to communities secure funding. So these are some goals for our future. And lastly, some of our next steps are to hopefully you guys are interested, and hopefully you guys had some takeaways from our presentation and at least found some things interesting or some things engaging and would like to further help us in our program. And we would definitely recommend to check out our website and connect with us through email. So thank you.
I think we're going to save the questions to the end, Paul, right? If we could, we have a question and answer period.
Yeah.
And then if it's okay, if you guys can hold on, we're going to do about 10, 15 minutes of questions and question and answer amongst the students. And then we have another 20 minutes reserved for questions and answer. That's okay. Is that all right, Emil? Yep.
Go ahead. Yeah, it's good time. I mean, it's good, Joe. Sounds good.
Good. So I think, Paul, we have a series of questions, and I was just gonna tee the questions off with a
Hi,
YouTube
my name is Jeff
video.
Clark, and today I want to show you
with,
something just a little bit crazy.
with
In just a moment.
a speech, an interview between Anderson Cooper and Bill Gates. So we'll have a 30-second video here, hopefully, if everything works.
You believe this is the toughest challenge humanity has ever faced?
Absolutely. The amount of change, new ideas, it's way greater than the pandemic, and it needs a level of cooperation that would be unprecedented.
That doesn't sound
No, it's
feasible.
not easy. But hey, we
sounds
have
impossible.
30 years. We have more educated people than ever. We have a generation that's speaking out on this topic.
So, Paul, questions over to you. Before I turn it over to you, I saw Ann Jaffe Holmes here. We talk about a great level of cooperation and collaboration. Ann Jaffe Holmes did a fantastic conference last April 2nd, which we mentioned. I just wanted to make sure we made very clear that that was FCWC and the wonderful work Ann's doing there. So Paul, over to you for the questions.
Yeah, so we have some questions that are prepared to kind of help provide information that could assist all of you in attendance with encouraging young people to get involved in this growing dimension of climate engagement. So the first question that we have is for our esteemed panelists is, are you part of the generation speaking out on this topic? And what encouraged you to get involved with Westchester Greene County, USA?
Bella?
Sure, I can start. So I've always been super passionate about climate change. It's just something you've kind of grown up with, hearing that in the news and a lot. But for me, I didn't really feel like there was something that I could do to kind of take action, because I felt like a lot of the power was in the hands of really like lawmakers. And as like a youth, it was really hard to like feel like you could kind of get involved, because you see like a lot of your peers posting like reposting something on their Instagram stories, but that never felt like effective to me. Or even at my school, we have an environmental club, but their efforts were towards gardening, and that wasn't really something that I was passionate about or felt that it was significant to what I wanted to do. So when I got involved with Westchester Greene County, USA, I felt like it was something that I could actually make an impact in my own community, because it's never been done before. And so that's why I really have stuck with Westchester Greene County, USA, and I think it's something so unique that's never been done before.
Yeah, I was going to say I agree, and I feel like if we push this cause with our generation, then future generations will have an easier time getting involved. And for me, I actually wanted to do something, if this makes sense, actionable, and I wanted to help and be a part of an initiative where they kind of take the first step, and so that other students can follow in this the same model or similar model and relatively the same footsteps, and it'll help and inspire them to do so. So yeah.
Yeah, excuse my voice, I'm a little under the weather, but you mentioned something about being like the generation of change. I think that's absolutely right. I think it makes sense that we would be the generation of change. Right now, we are, the most impacted by climate change. We're the ones who are going to have to deal with, the things that scientists tell us are going to happen in the next 20 years because of climate change. So, and it's really cool to kind of get such an early start on, like in our lives on this, global issue that actually makes an impact. That spreading information is really important, but being able to make like tangible change in our communities has been really awesome.
Thank you so much, Sophia. So the next question we have here is, Bill Gates talks about a level of cooperation that would be unprecedented. What has been the reaction from your program? How has your outreach been received by fellow students throughout Westchester County, as well as educators throughout Westchester County?
Sophia,
I,
second.
sorry. I think it's been received really well. Anytime I mention the work that we've done or we are doing regarding climate neutrality, and has sparked an interest in other students and has sparked a conversation. And most of the time they do want to get involved with WGC USA. And we've like not only gotten like student cooperation, but also educators involved and as well, from like not only like principals, but like superintendents from different districts talking about WGC USA, wanting to get involved and wanting the schools to kind of start this initiative. So I think that's really awesome. And yeah, I think that this program is basically where everybody can be involved, and like everyone should be involved if they can. And I think that's like really amazing how this program is designed.
Yeah, I remember when we had our first meeting ever about this in like June of 2021 or something. I remember Joe was saying something like, adults tend to listen to young people more when they're talking about making change. And I remember thinking like, yeah, right. Like, I don't actually believe that, because I'd only ever seen, it didn't really seem like the things that we were able to do, like hosting conferences and talking to government officials, never seemed like something that high schoolers would be able to do. But in our experience with this organization, it's been very well received by adults, which has been a really cool thing.
Yeah, and I also feel like a lot of students are excited by the fact that it's something that they can implement in their own school and kind of take leadership in that sense. Because, Westchester is a big county, and that's why we really needed a united effort, because I don't know, some like the schools or the administrators at other schools from outside Edgemont. So if we really come together and get a lot of youth involved, it will be more effective. And in terms of environmental educators and just government officials, I think they're also excited by exactly what Sophia said, because it's student-led and we are fighting for the change that we want to see. And it's not just something coming from like a bunch of adults. It's really the people and the kids who want it the most.
Amazing. And I guess that goes into the next question I had prepared. Why are you here presenting at the New York State Conference on the Environment? What are you hoping to encourage conservation advisory committees across New York State to do? Are you hoping to encourage them to cooperate with schools across Westchester County and New York State?
Yeah, so we are presenting to showcase how important you all are to this program, and you guys are really the key to bridging the gap of like students and students' voices and needs to be heard. And yes, like we definitely, we are hoping there are some takeaways that you find important, and hopefully you guys will again be a part of this program or help push this program forward.
Also, a big part of our strategy for climate change, as we just presented, the big part of ADAPT was to connect the CACs with the schools. And this has been something that we've been advocating for way before this conference. So we've really started with that from the beginning. And we've even have, like, me and Sophia both serve on our local CAC as youth. And that has honestly been a really valuable experience to really be a part of the council that's in my own town. And we really want to get more students involved with that, just because like the CACs are fighting climate change in their own way, and we're trying to get schools to do the same thing. But if we can be united in that, we can be like way more effective in our strategy. So yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I think a lot of students, probably including the three of us, there was a point in our lives when we had no kind of outlet for local action regarding climate change. I think encouraging more students to join their local CACs will not only kind of breed a new generation of adult members of these CACs. Schools are such huge parts of cities, but but it will give students who are maybe looking for ways to get involved in policy change regarding climate change a way to do so.
Paul,
Sounds
we had another set of questions, but I think I want to make sure we have time for the question, no set of questions for this panelist, but I'm thinking I want to make absolutely certain we have time to listen to the questions coming from the audience. So maybe we'll save that second part until we've heard the first round of questions, if you think that makes sense.
Yeah, I already had a question that came in, if you want me to present it right
Yes,
now.
please. Yep.
All right, so this question comes from Yvonne Chu. So Yvonne wants to know, have you run into situations where you had to approach schools that were not supportive, and how was that handled? One concern is that as students leave to continue on to further education or other endeavors, that the energy behind the action will dwindle. For example, and as a result of that, what are ways to keep the ongoing engagement happening?
Well, I haven't really experienced schools being not on board with it. I mean, when I White Plains High School was able to become carbon neutral last year, and there was more hesitation as to like the legitimacy of the program, if anything, but they were very on board for the whole initiative. In terms of having that kind of student interest dwindle as students graduate, we've been talking about this, about getting like sophomore and freshman members, and even like in middle school members of Greene County, so that they can have these long-term involvements in the county, and then as they grow up, they can get younger students to be involved. So we have constantly involved students, and even like Riddha graduated, but she's still very much a part of this initiative. So
Yeah, it's definitely something that we want to like carry the legacy on through the different grades. So it's been really nice to like get pass down the torch and have like Riddha still stay involved, but also get like new members from all across Westchester just to continue it. In terms of like difficulties in school districts, I haven't really seen someone who's been like, oh, like against this, because I think schools do want to see change. It's just more like the logistics behind it, in terms of like they're just too busy, like there's just not enough focus on it, which is obviously frustrating at times, or schools who just simply don't have like the resources to do such a thing. And that's exactly why we have like the funding aspect to really help schools have the resources to be able to implement this. But we have had, I think, one major difficulty is in outreach to a specific school district that qualifies for lots of money from the NYSERDA program. And we've like tried many different outlets to get like in touch with them. And we're seeing, it's been like a couple months now, but, just persistence is what's kind of kept us going, because we know that they're busy, but we just really want to keep our advocacy going and help them secure their funding, because they do qualify for it.
Yeah, I was just also going to add on that. So in terms of having students be a part of the initiative. So for example, well, I did graduate. I'm in Smith, but I am still very much involved. I was able to bring in another member of the executive committee, Juliet, who is a Scarsdale High School student, and to be a part of this. So it's kind of like bringing people from your school or different school districts even to start from like freshman or sophomore year to be involved in this, and kind of as you almost age out with like older members, you start bringing the younger members in, and it's this constant like chain reaction. So it's like it's kind of giving the torch in a very easy manner. It's not like very abrupt. At least that's what we found. And then in terms of the school's difficulty, I mean, again, there hasn't been any difficulties regarding like the schools not wanting to be having this initiative. It's more of that they want to learn more about it, and they want to have more information before they agree to anything, which is very fair, because it is like, again, like a school district like saying, okay, yes, I would like to take on this initiative that is like, not only short term, but like has long-term goals. And so they kind of, I think the hesitation is more of that they might not know as much about it and they want to learn more. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, that was really a wealth of information. So I see you, Emily of Kingston. I see you had your hand raised. You have the floor to present your question.
Okay, thank you. When you say that you're engaging educators, and you did mention that you're engaging the school board, the superintendents, the janitors, are you engaging, the property managers? Is that what you mean? Or are you talking about teachers?
I think it's both. So in a sense, environmental educators, we're referring to like the teachers in the school that are teaching like environmental like classes and courses, or even just like the advisor to environmental clubs. So connecting their efforts, since they're the ones like teaching climate curriculum in schools. In terms of like building people, that helps us to like work with them in terms of calculating their the amount of carbon they're producing every each year. And then superintendents is obviously to implement like this throughout a school district, and like they're kind of our point person in implementing it overall. And then the environmental educators and building persons are for specific parts of that plan.
Okay, thank you, because I think that's great, and I think what you're doing, I'm hearing what you're doing is wonderful. And I used to work in recycling, and we never got good coordination. And recycling is a teeny part of this effort, and we never got good cooperation. If the students took it on, the janitors threw it in the trash, and so on. So it was always very disappointing. And it was like, even though it's been a state law for your entire lifetime, you have to re-educate every year as if it's a new thing, and it's not a new thing. And so this is so much bigger, because you're asking people to, redo their windows or insulate or put solar on the top. So that's why I think it's great if you are getting those building people, because it's their job to save money. And so they should know how to do this, or they should learn quickly, because there's so much money there's money and there's education and everything. So I really appreciate it for what you're doing, and that you are engaging those people, because students can't do it alone, and you'll be disappointed. I did want to ask, I did want to point out that the conservation advisory councils are not always the same in the state, in every municipality, as the climate action committee, or whatever they're called. So it really depends on the municipality. I'm in Kingston, and we have a climate smart committee and a CAC. So that so when you talk about that, make sure you know that you could be trying to approach two different committees, or maybe even more. And also, I want to say that because of that, the CAC in our community, we're about land use and open space and natural resources. And we are not doing, we're not doing the kind of things that you're talking about in general, because there's another committee that does that. And we want students that are interested in, preserving wetlands and forests and land use also to be on our committees. And so my question is, we have had very little interest, and we just don't know how to get the students to want to be our members. Do we have to pick them up? Do we, we approach the school and then it dies. And so I really want to know more about your experience in actually having people, getting students to start, say, when they're a sophomore, and stay till they're a senior, or maybe even stay on if they go to the local college.
Well, I'm sorry for the background noise. But I definitely think that, yes, that is definitely something that is a bit harder to tackle, because we did try two different methods in terms of approaching students. So at first we went straight to the schools and the school districts, and it was much harder to get a student engagement. But when we were able to kind of weave through, whether we had friends or something like that, we were able to kind of weave through and get student engagement. So I guess in this case, I would students, especially like high school students, in my in my experience, really love where there's some sort of like some sort of like incentive for them as well, like in the sense that maybe it's possible that they could have like, it's like an internship, or it's kind of viewed as something not only like where they can get involved, but also something that they can showcase their leadership skills. So that's something I've definitely found when I kind of showcase to students about WGC. I also kind of worded in a specific way so that there are more students who want to get involved and engaged and things like that, if that makes sense.
Thank you so much, Riddha. So I guess we'll go to our next question. This is from Tracy Storr. Tracy has been invaluable in terms of creation of a junior CAC role for the city of Rye. And Tracy wants to know what do the schools need the resources or funding for? And is this to help it pay for advisement? So the funding that was mentioned, I think by Bella, what do the schools, what can schools use those allocated funding and resources into implementing?
Yeah, so it wasn't necessarily for advising. I meant in terms of, so we have these, after you measure the carbon that you're emitting, you have to be able to create short-term reduction plans and long-term reduction plans. So short-term reduction plans can be like simple things like changing it to LED light bulbs or recycling programs. And so those are relatively easy to implement into schools, but in terms of long-term, that's kind of relying on renewable energy sources. So that could be solar panel installation, and that obviously costs like a lot of money that some schools simply don't have. Other schools, just like from talking to other youth, don't have them a lot of funding to have a climate curriculum class. So like an AP environmental science, they just don't have the funding for that, whether that's not enough. Like environmental teachers, I'm not exactly sure because I don't go to that specific school, but the funding could also go through that and just changing the infrastructure of the school so it can be more sustainable and energy efficient.
Thank you so much, Bella. So we have about 12 minutes left on the time for the program. Joe, do you want to play the remaining clip that you have, and we could ask the remaining questions, or do you want to field another question from the chat?
Well, I'll play the remaining questions in a second, but I just wanted to talk. So Emily, you're 100% correct. And, you know, first of all, I want to shout out to the young ladies. You can see are articulate and committed and extraordinarily resilient. You know, it's a slog. It's a slog, you know, reaching out to every school district. And I think the problem, and I think I'd love to hear your views. It's really tough to get schools and students engaged. It's really, really difficult. I think the young ladies are fairly generous in their, and it's more lethargy, and it's not a priority. Now, the good news is, I think that's all changing. So, you know, I used to work in the stock market. So the one skill you're supposed to have in the stock market is be able to predict the future. And so what we're seeing is a global trend. So Italy has made Italy has made a requirement that every school educate on climate change. Turkey is moving in that direction. We started off in the UK. There's a Let's Go Zero campaign in the UK where as you know, they held the COE process in Glasgow last year. So the UK climate change champion really wanted to reach out to school. They started this Let's Go Zero campaign where they're encouraging 5,000 schools to become net zero by 2030. And then as we were developing this project, after our success in Portchester, looking to take it out across Westchester County with young student leaders like you're seeing today, the the K-12 climate action plan was developed. And as you can see, it's a comprehensive plan. And ultimately, and so it's an action-oriented a comprehensive plan that covers all 4 bases. And it was designed by Christine Todd Whitman, former EPA administrator and Republican governor of New Jersey, and John B. King, President Obama, Secretary of Education, right? If we're going to need a level of cooperation, we need to get everybody involved. Everybody involved. And so ultimately, so I think the time is right, Emily. And the reason we're here today is we'd love to get in touch with them. Let's reach out to the Kingston schools again. What we're looking is different touch points. Ann's fantastic. Ann is, I can't wait to hear from you, Ann. Ann is a fantastic partner in this effort. Ann's been doing this for a number of years. Her April 2nd conference was absolutely terrific last year. And so I think the more we can coordinate, the more we have the touch points, the more we can, generate a similar language and some goalposts, I think the more effective we can be. So don't give up yet, Emily. I just wanted to say, and I'd love to help you reach out to your schools as well. And Ann, I think let me turn it over to you. I think you're muted, Ann. Ann, I think you're muted. Yes, you're muted.
Sorry, everybody. I am so stupid this way. This is the best discussion ever. I can't thank you enough for all the student presenters and Joe and Paul, the moderation, and all of you for contributing, because this is where it's really the engine for the future is now here on this Zoom. And I got to tell you that we, the regents of New York State are in the process of reevaluating what is required for high school graduation in New York State. We all need to lobby our region. Each section of New York State has a region. We invited Francis Wills, who's the regent for Westchester County, to come to a couple of things, including the junior CAC program we're having on October 13th. She actually told me she intends to come. We need to lobby for exactly the kind of thing that this Green Schools is doing, and that every school be required to participate in greening their operations and becoming carbon neutral on a schedule. And they need to be required because, the truth is, Emily, that schools were never enforced to obey New York State law. It was New York State law, but the regents never declared, custodians, you all have to make sure that our schools throughout the state obey New York State law. They never did it. And anyway, we can change it. And thank you so much, Joe, and students and Paul and all of you. This is the best discussion. Very, very much going to drive our future. Thank you.
And thank you. And you just reminded me of one other really important point. Yes, exactly. Well, can we give her one world, Westchester County, Greene County? Around. Thank you so much, Ann. And I was just going to say 2 other things. One, you reminded me, Emily, you're 100% right. We could do the Climate Neutral Now program just with building staff and no one would know it. So you got to do the operations and the education at the same time. It's merged, and that's why Bella showed that footprint. 700,000 buses, right? 2 million acres of land. This is a huge environmental footprint, and we need to rally the operational people, as you suggest, Ann, get them on board and make sure that that operational exercise goes into the classroom. I also wanted to take a quick opportunity to introduce Lindsay Pokel in the corner there. She has just taken over as executive director of One World. But one of the reasons we asked Lindsay to join us, she's a specialist in designing environmental curricula. I don't know, Lindsay, if you could just talk 2 seconds about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not sure if we mentioned or not, but I was an elementary school teacher for almost a decade. And a lot of the work that I did was just helping my students become empowered within their community through sustainability education, through the Sustainable Development Goals, and just through walking them through inquiry to action research projects. And so I just had spent the last year attending Harvard University, where I really delved more deeply into climate change education specifically and how to create curriculum around that. which then led me here to One World.
Thanks so much, Emily. So Paul, is there any other questions? If not, we can go to the last set of questions.
Well, we have 5 minutes left on the clock. Do you think we should transition towards closing comments? Because if we
Well,
do
actually,
have any
I want to
closing
give,
comments,
if I could, I'd like to tee up the closing comments with Bill Gates, if you don't mind. 2 seconds, 30
all right.
seconds from
Sounds
Bill
good.
Gates. 30 seconds from Bill Gates and Anderson Cooper. Because I think he really frames it. I mean, look, we're preaching to the choir here a little bit, right? Let me just share my screen. But again, I have to say, when I watch this interview, you see just how important this is.
Filming, if every aspect of our daily life has to change.
It can seem overwhelming.
But you are optimistic.
Yeah, there are days when it looks very hard. If people think it's easy, they're wrong. If people think it's impossible, they're wrong.
It's possible.
It's possible, but it'll be the most amazing thing mankind has ever done.
That's what it has to be.
Yeah, it's an all-out effort, you know, like a world war, but it's us against greenhouse gases.
I think, so Paul, I'll turn it over to you for the last questions and the New World War and the last couple of questions, maybe finalize things.
Sounds good. So we gotta be very brief. We have about 4 minutes left on the program for this panel. So Isabella, I guess we'll start with you. Regarding the last video clip that was happening, based on your experience here in Westchester, how hopeful are you that we will win this war against climate change through our school districts?
Yeah, I mean, like the video said, I think we can do it. I just think we need to have a united effort, and like not only all the schools in Westchester joining together, but all of New York State, the whole world. And I think it really starts with that idea of think global, act local. And that's exactly what Westchester Green County USA is doing. Is we've received tremendous support, but we kind of have to keep building on it. And like one success we can celebrate, but we have to keep going because ultimately it's climate change and we can't run out of time. And, you know, what we've done in Westchester has really given me hope that it could like set an example for other counties and other states to follow. So yeah, I think it's definitely possible.
Thank you so much, Bella. I guess we'll next go to you next, Riddha.
Yeah, I was gonna agree, and I think that if we make these little steps, such as talking to schools about the neutrality program and like educating people, just these tiny little steps really make a huge change. So I think that's like one big takeaway is that we can really make big change, but in order to do that, we have to take little actionable steps in order to reach that goal.
And last but not least, we'll go to you, Sophia.
Yeah, so I think that it definitely is possible. I also think that like everyone who is trying to get to that goal that Bill Gates is talking about, who doesn't think it's possible, I think completely wrong mindset. You need to have optimism with something like this, because if you don't, then like what's the point? Yeah, in my experience with this group, we've always striven to do more. You know, when we were getting schools to become climate neutral, then it was, okay, we're going to become net zero. Now it's not just Westchester. We're hoping to inspire a whole bunch of counties across the country to do the same. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Sophia, Bella, Riddha, Joe, Lindsay, for taking time out of your schedule to support this program. What you're doing is very invaluable towards making sure that young people are equipped and well-informed of what they can be doing to address our climate crisis while you're going through the public education school districts. Obviously, we know we have some school districts that have a huge ecological footprint. So it's important that conversations happen sooner rather than later in regards to that pathway towards decarbonization, not only in compliance with our Climate Leadership Community Protection Act of 2019, but also making sure that we're doing our due diligence to mitigate our impact that we're having on our global community. It's the United States is one of the largest producers of carbon emissions, so it's important that we have young leaders such as the three of you having conversations with people that are 2 times, 3 times your age and letting them know what they should be doing so that we could have some semblance of stability in our weather patterns when you're their age. So thank you for everything that you're doing.
Thank you, Paul.
thank you.
Thank everybody. Thanks so much. Great job.
Thank you, everybody.